Good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe is off this morning right now on Morning News Now on high alert. The FBI and Homeland Security warning of potential violence against federal law enforcement officers following the search at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. We'll have the latest on what's being done to keep law enforcement safe and where things stand on the investigation into those classified documents this morning. Back in court, R. Kelly is back on trial starting today in Chicago, just 2 months after he was convicted in New York. We'll take a look at the new federal charges he's facing this time around and what we can expect as the trial gets underway. The road to recovery. Renowned author Salman Rushdie recovering this morning after being brutally attacked on stage at a lecture in upstate New York. We'll have the latest on his condition and what we're learning about the suspect in custody this morning. And rescued at last, a Missouri family's dog had been missing for nearly 2 months until a group of cave divers found her 500 feet underground. We'll hear from one of her rescuers and her grateful owner about how Abby made it home, safe and sound. Yes, you heard that right. 500 feet underground in a cave. It'll be a great conversation later this hour. Thanks for joining us on this Monday morning. And we start with concerns for the safety of law enforcement in the wake of that search at Mar-a-Lago 1 week ago. The FBI and the DHS are warning of, quote, unprecedented levels of threats against federal officials after agents seized 11 sets of classified material at the home of former President Trump. It comes amid a bipartisan push on Capitol Hill to see those sensitive documents and assess their potential risk to national security. Senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson has the very latest.
This morning, a new push from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who want to see what exactly the former president had at Mar-a-Lago, what those documents actually show, and then assessment of the potential risk to national security because of what they call the mishandling of those materials. All of it as the FBI is out with a new alert on the risk of violence against law enforcement.
Stepped up security this morning around the country after a new warning about a spike in threats against law enforcement agents and their families. The joint bulletin from the FBI and Homeland Security warning of more calls for violence against federal law enforcement, government and judicial officials after that search at former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home last week. Agents seizing 11 sets of top secret and other highly classified documents. And now the top Democrat and Republican on the powerful Senate Intelligence Committee, Senators Mark Warner and Marco Rubio, are pushing the Biden administration to show them what exactly those materials are. And they're calling for a damage assessment, a move echoed by some Democrats, sounding the alarm about the documents.
It is so important that these documents remain in safe locations. And Mar-a-Lago, where you can check out croquet sets and tennis rackets and golf clubs, that's not one of them.
But the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee downplaying concern.
We don't know what they are. We don't know if they rise to the level of being a national security threat.
Now, new fallout after a report in the New York Times that a Trump attorney told the government in June that all material marked as classified at the former president's estate had been returned. The paper citing 4 people with knowledge of that document. NBC News has not reviewed it. A Trump spokesperson blasting what they describe as suggestive leaks and no hard facts. And while Mr. Trump's team told Fox News he'd had a standing order to declassify anything taken from the Oval Office to the White House residence,
I think that claim is almost certainly a lie.
His former national security advisor tells NBC News he doesn't believe that's the case.
It would have to be documented what they were, each document, so that people would know what had been declassified. And I know of no logistical train, no paper train at all that says what's declassified and what's not.
Today, you also have some top former White House advisors describing what they see as an overall carelessness as it relates to the way that Mr. Trump handled sensitive materials while he was in office. John Bolton, for example, remembers that the president at the time sometimes kept classified documents from intelligence briefings when he should have returned them. Former Chief of Staff John Kelly tells the Wall Street Journal he was so concerned about the way that this stuff was handled that he tried to put in place new protocols to tighten it up. Back to you.
All right, Hallie Jackson, thank you. And turning now to the Middle East, where Israeli police say they've arrested a man suspected of opening fire on a bus in Jerusalem yesterday. Authorities say 8 people were injured, among them Americans. NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now for more on this. Hi, Matt. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Savannah. You know, some of those Americans, they were relatives, they were tourists. They were caught in the middle of what is escalating violence between the Palestinians and the Israelis over just the past couple of months.
Today, the Holy Land is recovering from a hail of bullets that injured 8 people, including 5 Americans. 3 of those Americans are still in hospitals recovering after police say a Palestinian gunman opened fire on a bus early Sunday. The bus had been parked near Jerusalem's Western Wall, waiting to carry pilgrims back from prayers. According to Israeli media, 4 of the 5 injured Americans came from the same New York family. One father reportedly injured while shielding his children from the bullets. New Yorker Menachem Palace was visiting Israel. He spoke to Channel I-24.
I heard a gunshot. And I looked and I saw the window like shattered. So I quickly ducked and I saw I had like blood everywhere over here.
Among the injured, a pregnant woman shot in the stomach. After an emergency C-section, her baby remains in serious condition.
I saw a few people lying on the floor in critical condition. We also had a baby that we took out of harm's way.
Israeli police launched a manhunt for the gunman in Jerusalem's Old City, but they say the suspect turned himself in hours later. Police said Amr Sadawi, a 26-year-old Palestinian, left this handgun in a taxi when he surrendered. The shooting comes a week after a ceasefire that narrowly averted another war between Palestinians and Israelis. Israel pounded the Gaza Strip with missiles last weekend. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad group responded with over 1,000 rockets. 47 Palestinians were killed in 3 days of fighting. No Israelis were killed or seriously wounded. A spokesman for the Palestinian militant group Hamas praised the bus shooting. Today, this operation confirms that the Palestinian people continue on the path of resistance, he said. Rising tensions that have both sides promising more violence.
And you know, Savannah, that violence continues into this morning. Israeli police said that they shot dead a Palestinian man who they said had tried to attack them with a knife during a weapons raid this morning in East Jerusalem. Now, the father of that man denied that his son had attacked the police. Savannah?
All right, Matt Bradley, thank you so much. We turn now to some sad news from Hollywood. Just days after being declared legally brain dead, actress Anne Heche has now officially passed away. She was being kept on life support so that her organs could be donated in accordance with her wishes. NBC's Ann Thompson has the details.
Hey there. Anne Heche was kept alive for 9 days after a devastating car crash. Her family says to fulfill her last wish of donating her organs to others. A final example, they say, of the star's kindness and generous spirit.
This morning, friends and fans are remembering actress Anne Heche, a spokesperson announcing overnight she was taken off life support following a fiery car crash in L.A. a week ago that left her in a coma. Her family said the 53-year-old suffered a devastating injury that completely cut off oxygen to her brain. Heche remained on life support while doctors determined which of her organs could be harvested for donation. Video obtained by TMZ shows what appears to be Heche's car first crashing into a garage and speeding away, only to crash again into a house a short time later, setting off a fire that took over an hour to put out. Once extracted, Heche was rushed to the hospital, where police say an initial blood test showed the presence of narcotics. Following her death, the LAPD announcing it would drop its investigation into the crash. Lynn Michelle rented the home that Heche slammed into.
This entire situation is tragic, and there really are just no words. I'm sending love to everybody involved.
The actress first gained fame from her role in the soap opera Another World.
Donna, don't cry. I can't deal with that right now.
Winning a Daytime Emmy for the dual role. She later moved to the big screen in the 1990s in films like Donnie Brasco, Wag the Dog, and opposite Harrison Ford in 6 Days, 7 Nights.
I've flown with you twice. You've crashed half the time.
At the same time, her 3-year relationship with Ellen DeGeneres brought intense public scrutiny. DeGeneres tweeting Friday, "This is a sad day." Heche is survived by her 2 sons, Homer and Atlas. Heche's ex-husband and father to 20-year-old Homer posting an emotional tribute on social media.
She was brave and fearless, loved really hard, and was never afraid to let us know what she believed in, and it was always love. It was all about love.
Heche Heiss had been very public about her struggles with addiction and mental illness, and she described suffering abuse as a child in her memoir, Call Me Crazy. Heiss described acting as an escape, saying she used it as an emotional outlet that helped save her life. I'm Ann Thompson. Now back to you.
All right, thank you. Now, a surge of gang violence has prompted the Mexican National Guard and Army troops to be deployed to Tijuana and several other Mexican border cities to help reinforce peace in the region. Officials say the violence stems from a power struggle among several drug cartels. So far, at least 17 people have been arrested in connection with the recent unrest. And it's gotten so bad that U.S. government employees were urged to shelter in place over the weekend, and Americans were advised to avoid the area. NBC News correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us now with the latest. Hey, Gabe, good morning. So first, just walk us through what exactly is happening in Tijuana, what's going on with these cartels, and what's the extent of the violence we're seeing?
Well, hey there, Savannah. Good morning. Well, Tijuana's mayor is blaming this latest wave of violence on CJNG. That's the Cartel Jalisco Nuevo Generación, which the DEA has blamed for tons of meth and fentanyl flowing into the U.S. But you see some of the pictures of the violence late Friday night into Saturday. There are now thousands of Mexican National Guard members and members of Tijuana's police department that have fanned out across the city after this violence broke out Friday night. There were apparently several coordinated attacks on public transportation. More than a dozen vehicles were lit on fire. And Savannah, this comes after additional violence earlier in the week throughout the country. The CJNG, that cartel, had posted on social media that it also wanted to impose a curfew on Tijuana, and this comes after a high-ranking member of the cartel was arrested elsewhere in Mexico earlier in the week, Savannah.
So, Gabe, Tijuana is known for being a bustling tourist city. I mean, myself, I grew up in San Diego, have family in Mexico. It's somewhere we were often. But it is also no stranger to cartel violence. Are people with them staying home as they're fearing for their safety, concerned about what this is going to mean for the economy? I mean, what's it like in the city right now?
And you're right, Savannah. A lot of, people traveling in between San Diego and Tijuana on any given day. Just this weekend, there was a major music festival there. There was significant impacts. Again, Friday into Saturday, you mentioned that shelter-in-place order for American citizens. Thankfully, that has been lifted, but there were people in fear for their lives, public transportation workers that just did not come to work on Saturday, and there are questions moving forward about, whether this violence will escalate. But, Savannah, as you said, Tijuana, of course, is no stranger to cartel violence. This is something that residents there have had to deal with for a very long time. Local authorities, though, are promising that there will be members of the National Guard sweeping the city, trying to hold off any more violence as the week moves forward, Savannah.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you so much. Now for the latest on author Salman Rushdie, who was stabbed multiple times in a brutal attack on Friday. Rushdie faced years of death threats from extremists over his writing, but his family says he is off a ventilator and on the mend. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa reports from Erie, Pennsylvania, where Rushdie's hospitalized.
Hi there. Prosecutors call it a pre-planned and targeted attack that landed acclaimed author Salman Rushdie in this hospital. He suffered stab wounds all over his body, including his neck, chest, and stomach. But remarkably, loved ones say they're seeing signs of improvement.
This morning, award-winning author Salman Rushdie is said to be on the road to recovery after surviving approximately 12 stab wounds. The son of the 75-year-old telling NBC News Rushdie is off a ventilator and has been able to say a few words, just days following the stunning attack in Western New York, adding, though his life-changing injuries are severe, his usual feisty and defiant sense of humor remains intact. Police say a man ran on stage Friday and repeatedly stabbed Rushdie minutes before he was about to speak. Event moderator Henry Reese was also injured in the attack.
When this guy first appeared, I thought it was a really bad taste prank until I saw blood. And after that, you realize this is real.
Rushdie was going to discuss the importance of freedom of speech.
It's more than an attack on him. It's an attack on his ideas,
The accused attacker, 24-year-old Hadi Matar, pleaded not guilty to second-degree attempted murder and assault charges. Two law enforcement officials tell NBC News he was inspired by Iran-related extremism.
Salman Rushdie.
The famed author has been a target of threats for decades. His 1988 novel, The Satanic Verses, angered some Muslims and led the former supreme leader of Iran to call for his killing. Rushdie opening up on Today in 2012 about the pain that caused.
It wasn't just about me. You know, I was worried about my family. I was worried about my publishers, my translators, booksellers.
Over the weekend, New York's Governor Kathy Hochul visited the scene of the attack.
A man with a knife cannot silence a man with a pen.
She praised those who rushed to the famed author's aid, like Dr. Martin Haskell.
How critical was it that some of those audience members had a background in medicine like yourself?
It was a large vein and it was bleeding profusely. So that was very important that he got that medical aid within 60 seconds.
Rushdie remains in critical condition, but his family says his improvement is a big relief for them. Meanwhile, today, the Iranian Foreign Ministry reacting to the attack for the first time, denying any connection between the attacker and Iran's government, but justifying the suspect's actions. Back to you.
All right, Emily Aketa, thank you so much. And now let's check in with Michelle Grossman, get a look at your forecast. Hi, Michelle. Good morning.
Good morning. And we have a couple weather headlines this week. We're looking at flooding threats once again, numerous spots around the country, and also heating up in the plains and the West Coast. We're going to see temperatures 10 to 15 degrees above what is typical for this time of year out west. So for today, we're busy once again, showers and storms. We have several storm systems bringing rain to portions of the southern mid-Atlantic states, Florida, southern Texas, the plains, even into portions of the Southwest. Those are the monsoon downpours. We'll see them starting up once again this afternoon, and we're going to see them pretty much every day this week. And then we're looking at really hot conditions in the southern plains into the triple digits once again, and warm sunshine out west. We're looking at temperatures excessively hot starting tomorrow. So let's start there with the dangerous heat. In the West Coast, you can see we have a heat watch. That's in that dark pink, almost purple color through portions of the Northwest along the West Coast. 9 million people impacted from Redding to Sacramento, Fresno down to Bakersfield. And we're going to see temperatures very toasty as we head throughout the next couple of days. So for tomorrow, we're looking at temperatures mainly in the 90s, 103 though in Sacramento, 103 in Fresno. Notice Wednesday and Thursday in the triple digits in Boise. Sacramento, you're going to be up to 105 tomorrow, 106 in Fresno. And we're going to see those temperatures continuing as we head throughout the rest of the week as well, 10 to 15 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. So it's toasty there. It's warm too in the southern plains. We had a little bit of a break, but Oklahoma, Arkansas, portions of eastern Texas, Mississippi, into Louisiana, we're looking at a heat advisory. That's where you see the orange. So Tulsa, Texarkana, Pines Bluff, Monroe, Starkville, into Hattiesburg. We're looking at 10 million people impacted. And that's because we're going to see heat indices or feel heat indices near 110 later on this afternoon. It is a huge temperature contrast. You can see that jet stream dip down into parts of the mid-Atlantic. So feeling really nice in the Northeast. We had a beautiful weekend. We saw temperatures really pleasant, almost picture perfect for this time of year. And today we're going to keep it cool as well. 71 in D.C. That's 15 degrees below what is typical for this time of year. 75 in Pittsburgh, but not too far to the west in parts of the central and southern plains. We're looking at temperatures into the triple digits once again, 12 degrees above what is normal for this time of Wichita, up to 102, up to 100 degrees in Oklahoma and Dallas. You're going to see the same story. And we're going to keep that heat in place tomorrow as well. 103 in Tulsa, 102 in Wichita Falls. Shreveport, you're looking at 101, and keeping it really nice in the Northeast to the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, into portions of the Midwest with temperatures in the 70s and 80s. Kansas City, just 73 degrees tomorrow. Baltimore, you're going to be below average at 80, and Raleigh 75. So enjoy that. We're going to be heating up a bit by the end of the week. We're looking at temperatures into the upper 80s by Friday in New York City, but looking really good in Erie, Chicago, temperatures in the 70s and 80s. Cincinnati, 80 on Wednesday, 82 on Thursday, and 84 on Friday. So that's one of the big weather stories, and we're looking at a flood risk once again. Many spots across the country where you see this blue, we could see the potential for flash flooding. That's in the southwest with those monsoonal rains into the northern Rockies, the plains as well, where we're going to have a cold front moving through. Southern Texas, we're pulling in tropical moisture. We had a soggy day yesterday. That's continuing throughout the day. I'll show you that in just a few minutes. And also the Appalachians, we could see some heavy rain falling as well. So your rainfall forecast in parts of southern Texas. This is southwest Texas into western Texas. We could see up to 4 inches of rain. So we thought this could become a tropical depression, this area of low pressure. Never made it on land without becoming that named storm, but still looking at heavy rainfall. We're seeing heavy rainfall, especially in parts of southern Texas, and that's going to continue throughout Tuesday. And then as we look further to the north and the southwest, the Rockies, we're looking at heavy rain where you see those darker colors, yellows, reds, oranges. We're looking at heavy rain. And Savannah, we're looking at heavy rain falling also throughout the plains from Omaha all the way down to Springfield. Back to you.
All right, Michelle Grossman, thank you so much. Welcome back. Today marks 1 year since the Taliban took control of Afghanistan in a sweeping power grab that came amid a botched U.S. troop withdrawal. Since then, the humanitarian situation has worsened, while women's freedoms have all but faded. NBC News foreign correspondent Kelly Kobaya joins us now for more on this. Hey, Kelly, good morning.
Savannah, good morning to you. Yeah, the country is in crisis on so many levels. Huge numbers of unemployed, tens of millions of people who can't afford to buy food, and women once again being pushed into the shadows, having to fight for the right to work and education. A defiant and dangerous protest by women in Kabul, beaten by Taliban fighters for gathering in the street, chanting bread, work, and freedom. A year ago today, thousands desperately tried to escape as the Taliban encircled the capital, fighting to get on the last flights out of the country, handing over their children, many terrified they would be hunted down for working with the U.S. Kabul fell in hours with almost no resistance, the country's former president fleeing in a helicopter.
And the reason I left was because I did not want to give the Taliban and their supporters the pleasure of yet again humiliating an Afghan president.
The new rulers promised to be more moderate than the Taliban of the 1990s and vowed to not harbor al-Qaeda or others planning to attack the West. After the U.S. drone strike that killed al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri this month in Kabul, the Taliban insisted they didn't know he was living in the capital. The White House claiming in a newly declassified intelligence report that al-Zawahiri was the only key al-Qaeda figure trying to re-establish himself in Afghanistan, adding that the terror group does not have a capability to launch attacks against the U.S. or its interests abroad from that country. Drought and sanctions have destroyed Afghanistan's economy. More than 1 million children are at risk of severe malnutrition, as we saw firsthand back in January. Today, women's freedoms have all but disappeared. Morality police make sure they're covered and traveling with a male escort. Girls older than 11 can't go to school. Yet some women and girls so determined to learn are studying in secret, a network of underground schools reportedly springing up across the country. And these women and their families taking such tremendous risks in order to continue their education at these underground schools. One woman said that she hides her school books in the kitchen so that her Taliban-supporting brother doesn't find them, and sneaks off to school because she says she wants freedom and she wants to be able to help build a better future. Savannah.
All right, Kelly, thank you so much. And breaking news now out of Russia, where the legal team representing Brittney Griner says they have filed an appeal of her conviction. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky joins us now from Kyiv with more on that and other international headlines this morning. Hey, Morgan.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. There had been some discussion regarding this appeal, but it is official today. The Griner team filing that after that sentencing in Russia. The WNBA basketball star sentenced to 9 years for those vape cartridges that she was carrying in her bag. The appeal will likely take up to 3 months to be processed. What's not clear, though, is how this may impact the proposed prisoner swap. Russian officials have said that all legal avenues must be exhausted before a potential exchange can be discussed. However, over the weekend, Russian officials said negotiations for a swap were already underway. The European Union, along with 42 other countries, are calling on Russia to withdraw from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. In a statement posted on an official EU website, the group urged Russia to withdraw from the plant so that crews can work and safety inspectors can get a look at that now damaged plant. Russian troops have occupied the plant, which is the largest nuclear plant in Europe, since March. And a group of U.S. lawmakers is in Taiwan today, meeting with President Tsai Ing-wen. Senator Ed Markey is leading the 5-member delegation. They're expected to discuss regional security, global supply chain issues, and climate change. The meeting comes as China's ratcheting of military tensions in the region. That, of course, coming after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit that came 2 weeks ago. Savannah, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Morgan Chesky, thank you so much. Welcome back. Alaskans head to the polls tomorrow to vote in key House and Senate primary races. This time around, however, the state will be choosing its candidates in a different way, using a ranked choice voting system. And not everyone's happy about it. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale joins us now from Anchorage, Alaska. Ali, first of all, thank you for being up very early. Not exactly bright yet there, but thanks for doing this for us. So before we get into some of these races, walk us through this new voting system. I know it's a little weird, a little wonky. How does it work, and what are people saying about it?
Look, a little weird, a little wonky, but the experts that we've been talking to, Savannah, say this is no different than like ranking your favorite ice cream or your favorite cereal, only this time you're ranking candidates. And so the only part of it that might be confusing is, frankly, what's happening on the House side of this race, because they're basically doing two things simultaneously. They are both voting for the person who's going to finish out the House term for the late Congressman Don Young. That person who wins on Tuesday is going to serve out the rest of the term till January. But then they're also voting on the primary for the race in November. That person is going to do the full 2 years of the seat. So that's the only part of it that may be a little confusing. But look, most voters that we've talked to say they're excited to see how this works.
Ali, one of the battles we're watching is the House race for the seat, as you just mentioned, of the late Congressman Don Young. Trump-backed former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin is among the candidates here. Yeah. What are the key issues on the ballot, and what are Palin's chances of winning? How is she looking?
Well, look, this is where the ranked choice voting system comes into play, because one of the things that you get with this kind of a system is candidates who are able to build a little bit of community or a little bit of collegiality, maybe not go so negative. That's something that voters may remember when they're thinking of, okay, maybe you're not my number one, but maybe you're my number two. There is one Democrat in this race, and she could be someone who comes away with the first round of votes very high, leaving it so that either Begich or Palin, the two Republicans who are running in this primary, are the ones who are eliminated first, and that's when the ranked choice voting system gets interesting here. But look, Palin has a big national profile, but also voters here may have long memories. She's a former governor, a former mayor. She left that gubernatorial term after running for vice president with then Senator John McCain. Voters may remember that, but look, they know the national profile and the firebrand, and they also know the party's caught up to her. Listen to what one voter told me.
To be honest, Sarah Palin really scares me. I think she started what Donald Trump has been. So
the party's kind of caught up to where she was.
Exactly. You know what's interesting, though? I was on a Zoom thing about candidates the other day, and she's very personable. I mean, I liked her a lot just as a person.
The question now, Savannah, is Palin's in line with the national Republican brand, but is she in line with what Alaskans envision for representing them?
Absolutely. Ali, we're also keeping an eye on the Senate race, where incumbent Lisa Murkowski is fighting it out against a Trump-backed candidate. There's the mirror. A lot of this comes down to these questions of the Trump-backed candidate or not. What can you tell us about this race?
Yeah, this is yet another instance where is Trump's influence going to be felt or not? This is a fiercely independent state, but it's also a state that went for him by 10 points in 2020. Murkowski's got a few challengers in this primary race, but her key challenger is Kelly Tshibaka, who is endorsed by Donald Trump. And look, if Murkowski were to lose this primary, and I say if because she has faced long shot incumbent bids before. In 2010, for example, there was an infamous write-in campaign after Murkowski lost in the Republican primary and then was able to come back through a write-in in November. That's a notable thing, given the fact that her last name, not exactly the easiest to spell, but nevertheless, not a stranger to a tough re-election. That's what she's facing here, though I have to say, Savannah, as someone who covers the Capitol day in and day out, if Murkowski were to lose this primary, it would truly change the face of the Senate, not in terms of the balance necessarily, because we expect this seat to stay red, but in terms of people who are willing to look across the aisle and sometimes buck the party line. Murkowski is someone who has crossed over to vote on the gun violence prevention bill. She's currently working on abortion protections bill. That's not something that a lot of Republicans are doing at all. Same-sex marriage, something that both houses in the Senate are trying to work towards. And then, of course, you have the broader scheme of the way that she has taken on Trump, voting to convict him of those impeachment charges. The question for Alaskans is that indicative of them? This is a state that likes an independent streak sometimes.
All right, Ali Vitale, so much to watch for there and such an important point at the end. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now, all summer long, we've reported on travel horror stories, from flight delays to last-minute cancellations. And as a result, many folks are now asking what they can do to avoid all that. That's led to more people buying travel insurance. But is it always worth the money? NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander joins us now from Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta. Blaine, you know, I wish that something like this is just the silver bullet that we need to make it all better, but I'm not sure. What do we think? Is it worth it?
Well, you know, Savannah, experts say that it is, but you're right. It's definitely not a silver bullet. It's not a proof guarantee. But, you know, it's something that a lot of us really never thought about when we talk about travel insurance. But, of course, the pandemic changed everything, including the way we travel. And now more people, including younger travelers, are scooping up insurance policies, and those insurance companies are rushing to keep up.
While travel may be roaring back, there are still plenty of canceled flights, missed connections, lost luggage, and a host of other travel uncertainties.
It really had me second-guessing the trip altogether, honestly.
And as more people are hitting the skies, travel insurance sales are skyrocketing. Squaremouth, a website that helps travelers compare insurance prices, says policy sales are up 180% in June from the previous year, and claims up 235%.
The COVID-19 pandemic changed just about everything about the travel insurance industry. Essentially, anybody who's traveling has been more inclined to purchase travel insurance.
That means insurance companies have made some changes too, expanding their coverage to accommodate illness, additional flight cancellations, and allowing a longer window to rebook, all crucial in getting people back in the air.
The travel insurance that has pandemic coverage in it, it's really a boost, and we're certainly seeing a lift from that.
But higher demand, coupled with a summer of flight delays, cancellations, and rising COVID cases, left some travel insurance companies struggling to handle an influx of claims.
Claims are not being handled as quickly as they used to be.
Still, it's not a complete guarantee. Avid traveler Laura Bedell thought her policy would offer protection after a canceled flight meant she spent thousands to rebook. Instead, she got a rude awakening when her claim was denied.
I got a rejection letter saying that because the airline had canceled the flight, not me, then it didn't qualify for any kind of reimbursement. I've definitely learned to read all of the fine print before you put any money into something.
Experts say it is worth the relatively small fee to protect your travel investment, but there are a few things to keep in mind. Be clear on what your policy entails and what situations are covered. Check with your credit card company first to see if they offer insurance. And finally, consider using a travel agent to help you navigate the process if something does go wrong.
Now, Savannah, there are still a lot of things that people need to know, but a big question that people would ask is how much is this going to cost? So when you talk about the average price of a policy, it's about $248. That's to cover the entire trip. But there are a number of variables like how long you're traveling, where you're going, how many people are traveling, even your age that could possibly drive that price higher. Overall, experts say that you should expect to pay about 4 to 8% of the total cost for your travel insurance policy. Savannah.
All right, Blaine Alexander, good info there. Thank you so much. And turning now to your health, millions of people swear by the vitamins and supplements lining the aisles of their pharmacies and grocery stores. But how much good are they actually doing? NBC News senior consumer investigative correspondent Vicki Wynn is here on set with us with more. Vicki, I feel like this has been a conversation a lot recently. Like, are these actually doing anything?
Well, I think part of the reason is because we're looking at all the places where our money is going and thinking, like, do we need to spend on this or that? So the question to take or not to take, the debate here specifically about vitamin and mineral supplements, those pills and powders that contain things like vitamin A, vitamin B, minerals like calcium, magnesium, and zinc. The most popular for a lot of us, that multivitamin, which has a combination of both. But now as we deal with ongoing inflation and every penny counts, could you skip these supplements and save some money?
Americans love their supplements. Taken by 31% of adults in the U.S., a whopping 80 million people, these pills, powders, and liquids are part of a $50 billion industry domestically. But are you getting your money's worth? The U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, which is a non-government independent panel of evidence-based medicine experts, reviewed 84 studies involving hundreds of thousands of people over 30 years. The task force concluded there was little or no benefit in using vitamin and mineral supplements to prevent cancer, cardiovascular disease, and death.
You really don't need to take them.
Dr. Peter Cohen studies the safety of supplements at Harvard Medical School. He believes they do have an important place in medicine, like for people with certain digestive diseases, following specific restrictive diets, or on medications that interfere with nutrient absorption. But he says they're not for everyone.
I'm a big fan of multivitamins, but it's when patients really need them. For most healthy people, there's just no reason to take these every day.
Not everyone agrees with the task force's findings.
There are narrow, specific recommendations for healthcare providers.
Andrea Wong, a PhD researcher, leads scientific and regulatory affairs for the Council for Responsible Nutrition, a trade group that represents more than 180 manufacturers and suppliers of dietary supplements. Those studies are limited. She says there's growing evidence multivitamins can be beneficial.
Multivitamin use can reduce the risk of cataracts. There's also recent research showing that multivitamin use can reduce the risk of cognitive decline.
According to Wong, supplements can also fill critical nutritional gaps in a person's diet.
People can really benefit from getting their nutrients, and unfortunately, so many of us aren't getting enough.
Still, Dr. Cohen says save your money if you're healthy and eating a fairly balanced diet.
Do you think supplements are a waste of money?
I do.
When your patients come to you and say, I would really like to take a multivitamin or a mineral supplement, what's your advice?
And I'd rather them spend that extra amount of money on healthier food.
Despite their differences, both experts can agree a multivitamin isn't a shortcut to good health.
I would think twice about taking the multivitamin because honestly, it's not going to replace fruits and vegetables.
But it's important to do the other hard work, getting a good night's sleep, getting your exercise, trying to eat as best as you can, and going to see your healthcare provider. It's one part of that puzzle. It's not meant to be the only solution.
You can't just eat hot Cheetos, take a vitamin, and call it a day.
I wish we could, but nothing in life is that simple, is it?
I mean, no shortcuts, right? Thank you. I'm asking for a friend. So if you are going to buy a multivitamin, our experts do have a few tips. You want to buy from a trusted retailer or a nationally recognized brand, and look on the bottle for that third-party seal, usually the letters USP. That's an indicator of quality. So it's kind of reassuring to know you don't have to spend your money on these vitamins. If you do, a multivitamin is the safest way, and just see how you feel at the end of the day. It's a real gut check.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great conversation to have because I think whenever I see them, I'm like feeling pressure, like, oh, this would be healthier for me, but you know.
And your mom's sending you a bunch to tell her maybe save the money.
I told Vicki that. My mom does send me vitamins, so I stick them, but you know, I'm going to point her to your report.
There you go.
Vicki, as always, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Welcome back. Let's look at some financial news now. And Uber says it's changing the way it rewards frequent riders. CNBC's Pippa Stevens joins us now with that and the rest of the day's financial headlines. Hey, Pippa, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Uber is shutting down its free loyalty program, Uber Rewards, to focus more on its subscription service called Uber One. The Verge reports users can still earn points until the end of August, and the last day to redeem them is October 31st. Uber Rewards lets you rack up points for every dollar you spend on rides or getting food delivery, which can then be used to get discounts on future rides or deliveries. An Uber One subscription costs $9.99 a month and comes with free food delivery and discounts on some Uber Eats orders and rides. And Elon Musk says Tesla has now made more than 3 million cars, with a third manufactured at the company's Shanghai factory. Musk tweeting yesterday, quote, "Congrats, Giga Shanghai, on making a millionth car." Tesla's production in China has been under pressure following months of lockdowns and parts shortages. While 3 million total cars may sound like a lot, it's still small compared to the world's biggest automakers. Toyota produced more than 10 million cars last year alone. And consumers have pulled back on some spending as prices for nearly everything have soared. But for now, they're still splurging on beauty products. Research firm NPD says beauty is the only discretionary retail category with rising sales in the first half of the year. NPD calls it the return of the lipstick index, a term made famous by Estee Lauder to explain higher sales of cosmetics during the recession in the early 2000s. Walmart and Target are both investing in beauty, adding new brands to attract customers. Savannah, back to you.
All right, pretty cool. Thanks, Pippa. Now to an unusual new TikTok trend that we first told you about last week called quiet quitting, and it's grabbing the attention of workers and their employers. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock joins us now with a closer look at this trend. Hey, Sam, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. I know a lot of people are like, what is this work-life balance that you speak of? But the reality is the pandemic had a lot of people sort of recalibrating what their priorities or how many hours they want to work at their job. Now we're talking about more than 3 million views of this quiet quitting on TikTok, but it's more or less work smarter, not harder, an idea that has resonated with so much of the workforce.
Quiet quitting means that when somebody asks you to do something that's not in your contract, you don't do it.
The concept of quiet quitting,
not doing the job of 2 to 3 people, stuff like that,
is making some very loud noise on TikTok.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. I'm going to tell you that.
First, let's define the idea, which one career coach says is really about priorities.
People aren't going above and beyond. They're not bending over backwards for their employers anymore and sacrificing their mental and physical health. They're doing what they're getting paid for.
Allison Peck has amassed hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok, doling out professional career advice. She tells us quiet quitting doesn't apply to many people, whether they're trying to run a company or jumpstart a career. But for others, she says it makes a lot of sense, even if the name doesn't.
I wish it was called something different, because you're not quitting, you're taking care of yourself.
So what would you call this?
You're coasting. You're carefully coasting.
Some speak about reclaiming control between work and personal life.
Isn't that just called working, doing your job properly with a healthy boundary?
While others say it's partly about pay.
Quietly quitting for me is acting my wage and knowing that my time is valuable.
The viral trend coming at a time when a Gallup poll finds employee engagement has dipped for the first time in a decade, and the great resignation of workers post-pandemic has put a strain on many businesses. But some online warning that quiet quitting doesn't benefit most people in the long run.
Quiet quitting is literally wasting your time at this company and shooting yourself in the foot. So please don't do that. If you feel like you have no other choice, get a new job.
As for advice to employers about combating quiet quitting,
managers are really important, and that does start at the top. It's important to have the right kind of conversations at the right time so that people do know what's expected of them in their role and how their work connects to something bigger.
Conveying a sense of purpose and a mission to those who are also looking for fresh incentive is important too.
I still work just as hard. I still get just as much accomplished. I just don't stress and internally rip myself to shreds. And it's beautiful.
Savannah, we might have the idea that this is mostly younger people that are weighing in here because, of course, TikTok does trend younger. It's seen as a more honest and authentic forum. If you look at the numbers, though, for what age groups are feeling like this is quiet quitting, I mean, in terms of just numbers, Gen X, Gen Z, older millennials, and also baby boomers all clocked in at about 31 to 30% of respondents who said that they're engaged with their jobs, which means that more than half of them across all age groups are either not engaged or actively disengaged, which is how we find ourselves where we are right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Savannah?
All right, interesting. Sam Brock, thank you so much. And now to another pandemic storyline we've been following for months, Peloton's recent struggles to reclaim its personal fitness crown. Now, this morning, there are new troubles for the fitness giant. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Goss joins us now with more on this. Hey, Steph, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Peloton announced it's about to cut 780 jobs and close a bunch of its brick and mortar stores. The CEO is calling it an aggressive reduction, and there's more. Once a leader of the pack, this morning, Peloton is racing to get back on track.
Y'all look good. Y'all look focused today.
The popular fitness giant is cutting hundreds of jobs, closing some retail locations, outsourcing delivery, and raising prices, too. Its Peloton Bike Plus going up by $500. and the treadmill by 800. CEO Barry McCarthy, who took the reins in February, stating, "These changes are essential if Peloton is ever going to become cash flow positive." The trendy workout from home business exploded during the pandemic. Its stock and popularity soared. But as gyms reopened and the landscape changed, Peloton hit a bumpy stretch, its stock tumbling more than 60% this year. Peloton has also battled safety issues, recalling certain treadmills last year after more than 70 incidents involving the machines were reported, including injuries to children and a 6-year-old boy who died. In turn, the company responded by offering full refunds and free services to relocate its treadmills and committed to working on a fix. Peloton has also faced a hit after the Sex and the City reboot, when Mr. Big died of a heart attack following a workout.
To new beginnings.
Peloton striking back with an ad starring a healthy Chris Noth.
Apparently, some people think the way I work out is strange.
And making another splash last month with Law & Order star Christopher Maloney bearing all in his workout. But Peloton needs more than a clever campaign to turn things around. Telling NBC News, "Any decision we make that impacts team members is not taken lightly, but these moves enable Peloton to become more efficient, cost-effective, and agile." The stock went up on Friday with this news. The next big test for Peloton will be when it announces its quarterly earnings on August 25th.
Awesome. All right, Stephanie Goss, thank you so much. Welcome back. Now, this is a wild story. A Missouri family's dog who was missing, forget this, 2 months, was found safe in a cave 500 feet underground. This is Abby. There you can see that's her when she was actually found in the cave by Gary Keene, who was exploring one of these cave systems in Missouri. And Gary joins us now along with Abby's owner, Jeff Bonert. And I'm thinking maybe Abby as well is joining us. Thank you to all three of you for being here. So first, Gary, I'm just going to start with you and this rescue and what you think when you are in a cave and of all the things that you see 500 feet underground, a dog. What did you first think was going on?
Well, we didn't believe it. We didn't believe there was a dog there. Simple as that.
I bet you didn't. And so at first, what did you think you had to do? I mean, how do you, obviously, you're kind of climbing down there, rappelling down. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but tell us what you're thinking about how you're going to get a dog out.
Well, that was the challenge, is trying to figure it out, because we were in there with a group working on a different project, and we had children along as well. So we're trying to figure out how do we take care of the puppy as well as keep the group moving, keep the children safe as well. And as you saw in that picture, she really wasn't responding at all to us other than just looking at us.
Oh, I bet. So, Jeff, now I understand that it seems like people had kind of started to hear, hey, we think there's a dog found down here. That picture looks like Abby, your dog. Tell me what you think. You've been missing your dog for 2 months when all of a sudden there's a chance you're going to get her back.
Well, at first it was just, that can't even be. So I did drive back to the cave and I met with Jerry, and he had a picture of Abby, and it's like, sure enough, that's Abby. I don't know how she's still alive after 2 months, but so, yeah, it was pretty exciting and overwhelming, I guess, to know that she was still safe down there.
Absolutely. I can't even imagine. And Jerry, for you, so how did you ultimately get Abby out? Tell me about this process. How did you physically carry the dog from 500 feet up to surface level?
Well, I had gone back up to the surface to once again see if we could find the owner and to arrange a rescue. Rick Haley and I then came back down with that bag you see there. And we were able to put her in the bag. Well, she willingly got in the bag because there's a blanket in there. And then Rick and I were able to carry her out. It's a very technically challenging entrance, so we had to use a lot of teamwork to get her out, lifting, climbing, through crawl spaces, etc. Wow. It was fun.
And was she calm through that whole thing?
Oh, yeah, she was very happy. She was probably the warmest she'd been, with a nice blanket, and she knew we were helping her out. So, yeah, she was great.
Oh, absolutely. Jeff, any idea how she would have been able to get down there, or, was able to stay alive for 2 months without food or anything?
Well, we assumed that she probably fell down in one of the sinkholes here in the area. They were out by her and my other dog, Summer. So how she survived, that's, I can't answer that. Besides, she just lived on her stored body fat. And I felt with God, obviously, that she survived for 2 months down there in total darkness without food. So, she hasn't told me exactly what happened.
Yeah. Abby, request for comment. No. How is she doing now? I mean, is she back to herself? I understand, as Jerry said, when he first saw her, she wasn't moving, not even a tail wag or whimper or anything like that. Now, how's she doing?
She's really responding well to the food we're feeding her and everything. She's getting stronger every day, and she's acting pretty much like her old self. She's wagging her tail again, so she's very happy. Just obviously needs to build her body back up, which will take some time.
Oh, wow. Well, she's looking pretty alert and good right now. Thank you both so much for your time. Abby, thank you for your time, especially after this experience. We appreciate you both joining us this morning. Amazing story.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that does it for this hour of Morning News Now, but the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.